Welcome to Figures in History. Join us on a captivating journey through time as we uncover key facts about influential individuals who have shaped our world. In this episode, we will be discussing Jomo Kenyatta. Jomo Kenyatta, born Kamau Njenji in the early 1890s in British East Africa, which is present-day Kenya, became an iconic figure in the fight for Kenyan independence. He adopted the name Jomo Kenyatta to reflect his cultural heritage, with Jomo meaning burning spear in Kikuyu and Kenyatta referring to the beaded belt he often wore. Kenyatta traveled to England in the 1920s to study and also to advocate for Kikuyu land rights, showcasing his early commitment to the struggle against colonialism. His time in Europe was significant as it helped him gain a broader perspective on global politics and colonialism, which later informed his leadership approach in Kenya. During his time in the United Kingdom, Kenyatta became deeply involved in anti-colonial activism. He joined the Kikuyu Central Association, KCA, and later the Pan-African Federation, where he worked alongside notable figures such as Kwame Nkrumah and George Padmore. Kenyatta's exposure to Pan-Africanist ideas was instrumental in shaping his political ideology. In 1938, he published Facing Mount Kenya, an anthropological study of the Kikuyu tribe, which also served as a subtle critique of British colonialism. This book established Kenyatta as a leading voice for Kenyan nationalism and African cultural pride. After returning to Kenya from Europe in 1946, Jomo Kenyatta became a principal leader of the Kenya African Union, KAU, which advocated for independence from British rule. His prominence as a nationalist leader made him a target for the colonial authorities, especially during the Mau Mau Uprising, a violent rebellion against British colonial rule. In 1952, Kenyatta was accused of being a leader of the Mau Mau and was arrested in a crackdown by the British. He was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment with hard labor, followed by an indefinite restriction to a remote part of Kenya, despite a lack of evidence directly linking him to the Mau Mau violence. Kenyatta's imprisonment became a rallying point for the Kenyan independence movement, with the phrase, Uhuru na Kenyatta, freedom with Kenyatta, becoming a popular slogan. His release in 1961 was a significant moment in Kenya's march towards independence. He assumed the presidency of the Kenya African National Union, KANU, the political party that would lead Kenya to independence. Kenyatta's leadership was instrumental in the negotiations with the British government that eventually led to Kenya's independence on December 12, 1963. Upon Kenya's independence, Jomo Kenyatta became the country's first prime minister and later its first president when Kenya became a republic in 1964. His presidency was marked by efforts to unify the nation, which included the promotion of Harambee, Swahili for pulling together, a concept that encouraged community self-help, national unity, and economic development. Kenyatta's government pursued a policy of Africanization, replacing the colonial administration with Kenyan nationals, and implemented land reform programs to redistribute land to Kenyan citizens. Jomo Kenyatta's economic policies were relatively conservative and pro-Western, favoring market-based development and foreign investment. Under his leadership, Kenya maintained a capitalist economy and established strong ties with the West, particularly with the United Kingdom and the United States. This approach was in contrast to some of his contemporaries in other African nations who pursued socialist or Marxist policies. Kenyatta's government also invested heavily in education and infrastructure, laying the groundwork for Kenya's future economic growth. Despite his contributions to Kenyan independence and nation-building, Kenyatta's presidency was not without controversy. His tenure saw the rise of political repression, with opposition parties being suppressed and dissenting voices often silenced. The shift to a de facto one-party state under KANU limited political pluralism. Moreover, Kenyatta's regime was criticized for the accumulation of land and wealth among a small elite, often referred to as the Kenya Land Freedom Army, KLFA, which included members of his own Kikuyu ethnic group. This contributed to ethnic tensions and economic disparities that have persisted in Kenyan society. Jomo Kenyatta's legacy in Kenya is complex. He is revered as the father of the nation for leading Kenya to independence and for laying the foundations of the modern Kenyan state. His image adorns Kenyan currency, and numerous institutions and landmarks bear his name. However, his legacy is also marred by allegations of authoritarianism and nepotism. The concentration of power and wealth in the hands of a few, along with the suppression of political opposition, set precedents that affected Kenyan politics for decades. Kenyatta's personal life was as multifaceted as his political career. He was married 4 times and had several children, the most famous of whom is Uhuru Kenyatta, who followed in his father's footsteps to become the President of Kenya in 2013. Jomo Kenyatta's marriages and relationships reflected the intersection of tradition and modernity, as he navigated both customary Kikuyu practices and the demands of political life in a rapidly changing Africa. Jomo Kenyatta passed away on August 22, 1978, leaving behind a nation that was fundamentally transformed by his leadership. His death marked the end of an era for Kenya, and the subsequent transition of power to his vice president, Daniel Arap Moi, was peaceful, which was notable in a region where political transitions were often marked by violence and upheaval. Kenyatta's state funeral was attended by numerous international dignitaries, reflecting his status as an important figure not only in Kenya but across the African continent and the world. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through this figure's fascinating life. If you're passionate about history, don't forget to subscribe to Figures in History for more captivating stories of influential figures from the past. Leave a comment below and let us know which historical figure you'd like to see in future episodes. Your suggestions matter, and together, we can continue exploring the amazing figures that shaped our world. Keep exploring, learning, and shaping a brighter future through understanding the past.